All right, good morning. Back on the road here. Forgot my sermon notes, so we'll see how we do. I have it all in the PowerPoint, and I left my computer at home. But anyway, we'll see how much I remember. The topic this week is devotion. Devotion sounds like a religious word. In fact, it's the word that we use when people, daily read their Bibles and pray. We call that doing devotions. But if you make devotion a noun into a verb, it's devoted, and we use that word commonly, as in, that guy is really devoted to his craft, or, I'm devoted to work, or I'm devoted to my family, I'm devoted to my spouse, which, of course, I am. The definition of the word, see if I can remember it, devotion is where someone is enthusiastic or, connected to an activity, a thing, or a person. And what I want to do this morning is I want to ask three questions. And the first question is, how do you know what you're devoted to? The second question is, how do we get out of a dilemma? There's a verse in the Bible that sort of sticks us in a dilemma when it comes to devotions. It's Matthew 6:34. And then number three, why do we get devoted to the things that we get devoted to? What's the mechanism behind? What's the need that we have? Or how has God created us in such a way that we just get into things? I mean, people get into crazy things. They get into sports. The Kardashians, for example, they've never done anything. What's this about? Why do we get into things? So we'll look at these three things. So the first is, how do you know what you're actually devoted to? I mean, we're involved with a lot of things in our lives. What are the things that qualify as a devoted to thing? There's really a simple little test, and it's two questions that you have to ask yourself. And the first question is, what do you do with your money? What do you do with your money? Matthew 6:34 talks about how you can't serve God and money at the same time. Money is a good indication of what you're devoted to. So just look at your checkbook. Where does your money go? You can say you're devoted to things. You can say you're devoted to your spouse, but look at your bank account. You can say you're devoted to God, but look at your bank account. Where does the money go? That's question number one. Question number two is, where does your time go? Where does your money go? Where does your time go? In fact, that's a better indicator, because you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. So how much time are you giving to something? You can say you're devoted to your spouse, but if you don't give your spouse time, then are you? Or you're devoted to your children, but if you don't have time for your children, because you're always working and doing other things, then you're devoted to these other things. You're not devoted to your time. If you're not giving time to God, then you're not devoted to God, no matter what kinds of things you say. So step one is to sort of evaluate your life. Where is your money going? Where is your time going? Okay, that's question one. Question two. How do we get out of this dilemma of Matthew 6:34? Matthew 6:34, as Jesus said, you can't serve two masters. You'll either be devoted to the one and despise the other. You can't serve God and money. But we do, right? I mean, we all have mortgages. We have a value in this country of owning your own home. I mean, that's not true about other countries. In some poor countries, they put up a nipa hut and they call it good. It's $2,000. They don't have a mortgage, but we do. We have a high value on that. And because we all have these mortgages, we got to go to work. We got to get devoted to work, or we're not going to be able to pay for things. We're devoted to our kids' schooling. We're devoted to our hobbies and our sports. We're devoted to all kinds of things. So how do we deal with this verse that says, look, you're either devoted to God or you're devoted to other things? You're either devoted to God or you're making idols of other things. So how do we get out of that dilemma? Well, let's come back to that one. That's a tough one. We'll just put that one off. We'll go to the third question. Third question is, why do we get into things? Why is it if you're born in the state of Michigan that somehow you're going to make a choice now between Michigan State football team and Michigan football team? And you can't choose both. You got to pick one. And if you pick one, you are mortal enemies of the people that pick the other. And there are people devoted to this. There's clothing to wear. There's podcasts to listen to. People know who's coming up in the high school ranks, who's a potential, who's going on to the pros, what the other teams, what's happening in the league. I mean, you can get into this stuff. My wife is a birder. She takes pictures of birds. Just this past week, some guy I don't know comes up to me and says, "Hey, really enjoying your wife's pictures." Okay. Yeah, he said, I'm a photographer too. I've been to Africa 4 times. I take pictures of animals. And he went on and on for 5 minutes. This is a guy I don't even know. Like, what world is my wife in that I don't even know about? I got into pickleball. I had a hip replaced and someone asked me to play this game, pickleball. I like sports with paddles and rackets. And so, all of a sudden I'm playing pickleball. The other day, my son is home and he was listening to a YouTube video about some guy who has a YouTube channel on mousetraps. Every week or two, this guy puts up a new video about the latest mousetrap that he found. I always thought making better mousetrap was just a metaphor for business, inventing and so on. But this guy literally is doing this. And, if he gets enough likes and so on, or followers, he can actually make a living on mousetraps. And what's weird is my son, I don't know if my son cares about mousetraps, but he watches these videos. So it's like when someone is devoted to something and they're near you, it's easy for that thing to rub off on you. Their enthusiasm, their drive towards this thing, their devotion towards this thing actually gets you devoted to this thing. So people are into so many different things. Why? What's the need behind this thing? How has God wired us that we sort of fall into this? Let me give you 7 things if I can remember them. Number 1, I think we get into things because it fits us. If you're athletically inclined and a new sport comes along, others are doing, you do it too, and it fits you. You succeed, you excel, and that feels pretty good. Or number 2, you get into it because everybody else is doing it. My kids all play guitar. Why? Because I played the guitar, and the guitar thing was always around. Everyone's doing it in their world, so they do it too. Look at what things you got into because there was someone around you that got into this thing. Number 3, you get ensnared into it. I lived in Chicago. United Airlines is the hub there is in Chicago. I was flying for going all over the world with the Bible League, and I started getting points, and these points translate into free tickets, and then I got double miles, and all of a sudden I'm devoted to United Airlines. I could care less before, but now somehow I got ensnared into it. It's called marketing. When I started pickleball, I was just playing. It was just a game. It was just fun. Then someone invited me to a tournament, and we played. And you get ranked, and you get a medal, and you stand on a podium. Just like the Olympics. I'm in the Olympics. I just played in a tournament Friday, and I got a gold medal in singles, and I got to stand on the top tier. Yesterday, I played doubles, and we lost, and then we couldn't get the gold or the silver, but we had a battle for the bronze. And in the bronze medal match, whoever wins gets the bronze. We were down 10-1. The game is to 15. We were down 10-1, and we ended up winning 15-13. It was like, wow, this is amazing. This is one of the most amazing moments in the history of sports. And that's what it feels like. And I'm like, well, what happened? What happened to me? I'm the president of the Grand Rapids Pickleball Club. How did this happen? I just started playing the game. And all of a sudden I get ensnared into this thing. The Bible actually warns about that. Don't be conformed to the pattern of this world. Don't get ensnared by things that just come along without thinking. I think number 4, we want to be involved in things that give us a sense of purpose. And when you get devoted to things, it seems like there's purpose, even if the thing isn't that purposeful. I mean, when you're at a game, a football game, and there's 50,000 people with you, and they're all cheering, and you're looking around and looking at all these people and their enthusiasm, and you're looking at the stadium, this multi-million, billion-dollar place. This has to be important. It has to be all this energy and effort and all these people and all this enthusiasm. It has to be significant, and it feels significant. It feels like there's purpose. When you're playing Monopoly, it feels like this is important, that it's special. Number 4 or 5, I lost count. You feel like you belong. We have this need to belong. When you're devoted to something and you're with other people who are devoted to that same thing, you can feel like you belong. You're in a crowd of people that you don't know, and yet you're one with this crowd. These are your people. They look like you. They dress like you. They're enthusiastic about the same thing that you're enthusiastic, and it feels good. When I play pickleball and I go out to the pickleball courts, people say, Steve, Steve, Steve. Someone got that started. I'm in a place where everyone knows my name. And I feel like I belong, and I feel important. I feel like I'm somebody. I got to be somebody. Look, I know these people. They know me. You get that feeling. That's what the church is supposed to be. Romans 12, verse 5. We belong to each other, and each of us needs all the others. Number 6. I think we like to be devoted to things because we want to be a part of something that lasts. We want to be a part of things that last. I mean, who wants to give their life to something that just disappears? The problem is we get involved with things that seem like they last. It's like a kid building a sandcastle on the beach. While he's building the sandcastle, he's very careful to make the turrets and the towers and, the drawbridge, and maybe he finds something for the flag, and he's being very particular, and, it's got to be this way and not that way. And in the middle of building this castle, he's taking pride in it. Maybe he's got a friend helping. They're having a sense of camaraderie, and they're building this thing. They're doing it right. And they have a sense that this is going to last, that there's purpose and meaning behind all of this. But then the tide comes in and washes it all away. And so many things in our life that we get embroiled in, that we get devoted to, they just don't last. The tide comes in and washes it all away. But we have this innate thing that we want something. It's just that when we get devoted to things, and others are, and we're part of this thing, it feels like it's going to last. And I think number 7, we're devoted to a sense of winning. We're devoted to those things where we feel like we're making progress, or we're winning, or at least we're on the way to winning. We all want to win in our marriage. We all want to win with our children. We want them to turn out well. We want them to get good jobs. We want them to get good spouses and raise their children and have a successful life. We all want to win at work. We all want to win in the games that we play. Even things. My wife is a quilter, and it's just making quilts. It's just a nice little craft. But they have these big award quilt shows, and they hand out the prizes and the blue ribbons. And I remember going with her, and we're looking at a quilt, and it's got the big blue ribbon on it, and one lady is talking to another lady saying, well, this is a nice quilt, and it's got the blue ribbon, but do you know why she got the blue ribbon? No, I don't know why. She got the blue ribbon because she's friends with the judge. Really? Well, how do you know that? Well, they go to breakfast every single morning. Tell me women in the quilt world are not competitive and they want to win. So, and I don't mean just winning in the sports sense of winning, but we want to be successful. We want to be successful in the things that we do. So all these, we have this need built in within us. Where does all this come from? And I think the winning piece really encompasses all the others. We want to win, and encompassed with that, we want to be something that lasts, something that makes us feel important, something that fits us, something that we can do with other people. We like getting ensnared in it and, making progress in it. It's all really about winning. Where does this sense of winning actually come from? You actually have to go back to the beginning of the Bible, in Genesis. God set up a perfect world, but in the middle of that perfect paradise, God put a tree of knowledge of good and evil. And he said to Adam and Eve, you can do one of two things. You can obey me and win, or you can disobey me and lose. And then in Genesis chapter 3, we see that they disobey God. And then sin comes into the world. And then when God speaks to the devil in Genesis chapter 3, he says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and hers. There's this battle, this epic battle between good and evil. And every movie that you go to, every play that you go to, every book that you read has this epic battle in it. If it doesn't, we're not attracted to it. We're attracted to stories where there's a battle. And especially we're attracted to stories where, the odds are against you. The odds are against you. In the pickleball game yesterday, it was 10-1. In the final, 10-1. The odds were against us, and we win against the odds. That's the kind of story that we like. That's the kind of thing that we like to be involved in. We like to start here and then incredibly go beyond that. It's part of the meta story behind everything. So what's behind this sense of wanting to be devoted to something is a sense to be so devoted to something that you improve, that you win. The problem is, it's like there's really only two options. There's evil and there's good. And it's back to that dilemma of Matthew 6, verse 34. You can't serve two masters. We want to, but you can't serve two masters. You'll despise one or be devoted to the other. You can't serve God and money. So you can either serve God with all your devotion, or you can serve idols. Those are the options. So there's our dilemma. Well, how do we do that? Because we do end up serving all kinds of other things. And some of them necessarily, I got to pay my mortgage. I have to put food on the table. And, I need a break once in a while, a sport to play or a craft to get it. Those things make us feel good. But I've been saying, well, sometimes they're a distraction. Sometimes we end up doing these things that are more of a distraction, and they keep us from the things that really matter. A lot of people, we get into our hobbies and our projects, and we get into work, and then we ignore the things that are important. We ignore our walk with God. We ignore our spouse. We ignore our family because we're into other things. So it's a dilemma, right? I mean, is sports bad? Is playing pickleball not the thing to do? Is my wife doing the wrong thing by getting so much into bird watching? What's the way out of this dilemma? I was talking to my associate pastor this past week on Wednesday about this, and he told the story of his son. His son was getting into snowboarding, and he was good at it. It fit him. Others were doing it, and it began to be the thing that he only thought about. This is what he really was living for, and he felt like he was making it an idol. Where's God? Where's God's purpose in all of this? So he found this organization called Snowboarders for Christ, and he started getting involved with that. He was doing what he was passionate about, snowboarding, but he was taking his devotion to this thing and transferring it to God. See, that's what we have to do. We have to look at all the things that we have in our life. So when I play pickleball, I have a, Pathway Church shirt on. I have a shirt that I made up called the Pickleball Pastor. I'm known as the pastor. I take time and try to listen to people and whatever their problems and issues might be. I'm trying to be a pastoral person to that situation. Now, sometimes I'd rather be just playing the game than sitting there for a half an hour talking to somebody, but I have to remember my purpose. My purpose is not to become a great pickleball player. My purpose is to become a great child of God doing His work. So again, for you, how do you do that? How do you take the things in your life, the things that you're already interested in, and how do you transfer the allegiance from that thing to God? You can do that thing. Everything that you're involved in, everything that you're, sort of interested in or enthusiastic about can be used for God's glory. So that's my assignment. My assignment to you is, number one, try to evaluate where your time and your money goes to see what you're actually devoted to, and then figure out how you can take the things that you're devoted to, things that don't directly relate to God, and figure out how to relate them to God. In the end, you'll feel better in the process.